Disney Star Wars and their long tumultuous relationship with various Star Wars directors has been one that has been well documented, with problems first appearing all the way back in 2016, when reports surfaced that Lucasfilm, including Kathleen Kennedy, was not happy with Rogue One director Gareth Edwards, and hired a completely brand new director to come in for the reshoots of the movie. And although this is by far nowhere near the most famous of the director splits with Star Wars, it is a notable one and a notable start to a trend. Since then, Star Wars has lost several directors, from Colin Trevorrow on Star Wars Episode 9, Josh Trank on apparently a Boba Fett anthology film, Phil Lord and Chris Miller from Solo, which was eventually replaced by director Ron Howard, and now Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm have seemed to sever connections with David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, the Game of Thrones producers, who were originally slated to make an Old Republic trilogy of Star Wars movies, one that was announced shortly after the release of Solo. Through all of this, head of Lucasfilm Kathleen Kennedy has remained quite quiet on why she believes Star Wars and directors don't seem to mesh nowadays, and why she has the habit of actually firing several directors from Star Wars projects. That is why, most notably, just today, Kathleen Kennedy actually spoke on the matter for one of the first times publicly, talking about why she believes she has such a hard time with various directors, and why she ultimately makes the decision to cut directors from Star Wars projects. Keep in mind that this is simply how Kathleen Kennedy views the situation, and I thought it would be interesting to share her opinion with you guys and her point of view. This interview with Kathleen Kennedy comes directly from the Rolling Stone, where again, for one of the first times publicly, Kathleen Kennedy opened up on the Star Wars situation concerning directors and eventually firing a lot of them. Quote, "Every one of these movies is a particularly hard nut to crack. There's no source material. We don't have comic books. We don't have 800-page novels. We don't have anything other than passionate storytellers who get together and talk about what the next iteration of Star Wars might be. We go through a really normal development process that everybody else does as well in the industry. You start by talking to filmmakers who you think exhibit the sensibilities that you're looking for in any particular movie. And I would argue that the list for this is very small. People who really do have the sensibilities about these kinds of movies, and then the experience and the ability to handle how enormous of job these movies really are. So we try to be as thoughtful as we possibly can about making those choices. I would also argue that sometimes people get involved in the normal development process and they realize this is so much more than I ever imagined. So it's pretty common that whenever you're working on movies, you're not making choices and decisions that necessarily work out exactly the way you want it to from the get-go." End quote. Although, while I don't necessarily agree with everything that Kathleen Kennedy has done as president of Lucasfilm, I do see to some extent where she is coming from this statement. I think Kathleen Kennedy talking about how there's not really source material for Star Wars doesn't really make a ton of sense though, concerning how much they've really taken from the expanded universe and legends of Star Wars. Other than this, I can really see how Kathleen Kennedy has a direct vision that she wants for any particular Star Wars movie, and then when a director doesn't really want to go along with that, I can see how there would be conflict. Most notably, I'm talking about Solo, where Kathleen Kennedy was most vocal about this, and how she believed that Phil Lord and Chris Miller were making a fun movie, but not really a Star Wars movie. Anyway guys, I'm sure this will open up a massive debate in the comments down below, but I would love to hear your thoughts on this quote. What do you think about Kathleen Kennedy's explanation on why Lucasfilm and herself lose so many Star Wars directors? Also stay tuned on the channel today for a more lore-based video, as again I try to cover all facets of the Star Wars universe, even the out-of-universe stuff sometimes. Anyway though guys, thank you so much for watching the video. May the Force be with you, and have a great day.